Hello, 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 and good morning, and welcome to Painting in Your PJs with Minette. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan, and Painting in Your PJs is all about using art as a creative process for self discovery and personal growth. The more that we face ourselves on the page, the more that we can learn about ourselves. And one of the ways that we've done that a little bit throughout the month of March is by honoring and celebrating famous women, artists, and creatives. And we looked at Georgia O'Keeffe, and we looked at the beautiful Nina Simone. We talked about Virginia Woolf and the amazing Audre Lorde. And today is going to be my last portrait for this series. And so I really want to honor and celebrate the beautiful Maya Angelou, one of my famous writers. So I've got a nice page of her quotes here. I have just a portrait, and then I had some fun this morning playing with playing with Midjourney, which is an AI tool, because I had an idea and a vision in my head for something that I wanted to create, and I wasn't sure how to create it. And I love where this painting took me in mid journey, and I want to recreate something. My volume's not working. Let's see. If I turn myself up, is that helping at all? Thanks, Cindy, for letting me know. Yeah, I can see that it is a little low. Why is it a little low? Hello, hello. Oh, I know why it's low. Because my microphone is not in front of my face. Yep, there it is. Hopefully that should be better. Cindy, just let me know if you can hear me better now. It would be really helpful to have my microphone in front of my face. That's what happens when you're up and on. Yeah, thank you. Up and online early in the morning and looking for all the details. Good morning, everyone. Hey, Tori, welcome back. Yeah, good morning, Barbara. Great to see everyone here. And Tori, it's been fun watching all of your travel pics on Facebook. So this is going to be the final portrait of our series on famous women creatives, because I realized that I committed to the 100-day project and it has not been getting enough of my attention. And that 100-day project for me is to work on drawing and illustrating my book. And I'm going to double down. Hey, Becky, good morning. Double down on that process and really focus in on my book. So I'm going to use the time here in the mornings to work on drawing and illustration. And we'll be sharing content from my book with all of you. So if you love sketchnoting and illustration and lettering, we're going to be doing a lot of that over the next month, for the final month or so, 6 weeks of the 100-day project. So, if you're just joining me this morning, we are honoring Maya Angelou, and I played with a tool called Midjourney, which is a artificial intelligence tool, because I had an idea based on one of Georgia O'Keeffe's prompts. One of Maya Angelou's quotes. I'm thinking about Georgia O'Keeffe from flipping through my book. And this particular quote I thought really speaks to who she was and to her life. And it said, "We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit to the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty. We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty." So I played with the idea of a portrait of Maya Angelou with flowers and butterflies and got a lot of different things, but this was the one that I really loved. And I loved this sort of graphic style. So my effort here is going to be to paint this portrait piece of her in acrylic using this as a guide, and then add that quote and maybe some other quotes around the edge of the page. And I'm going to do what I've done before, which is to cut the image out. I'm going to adhere it to my page with some matte medium, and then I'm going to paint right over this image because it's going to allow me to practice the highlights and shadows. So it's less about figuring out how to draw the face than to work in this really what's almost a monochromatic style of portrait here. It's certainly all warm colors. And see if I can, with a little effort here, recreate that. Now I love all of the flowers in the background too, but I've also been really loving just having some really simple portraits on the pages with room to write around them, and maybe I'll change my mind and add in some of those flowers in the background, but I really love that beautiful, beautiful look on her face. I'm just grabbing a piece of scrap paper here to stick under the pages of my journal. I'm going to grab my matte medium and I'm going to get this adhered down on the page and dive right in with some acrylic painting. So I would imagine that most of you are familiar, at least with the name Maya Angelou. So she was a writer, poet, activist, educator her whole life. Started out as a dancer, which I thought was interesting, and then realized that she was better at storytelling than at dancing, and wrote her famous memoir, When We Were All Itty Bitty. I was only 4 when it was published in 1969. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And that kind of catapulted her into the spotlight and a really long, beautiful life, sharing her wisdom and working on behalf of the civil rights movement. And I don't know if you've ever heard, there's, a lot of times you'll hear someone said, if you could attend a dinner party with anybody that you wanted who, and say there were 8 people there, who would be at the dinner table? She's always one of the people that I would want to have at my dinner table. And I'm just working the edges of this. I have matte medium underneath my image as well as on the surface of my image. And I'm trying to get a couple of these wrinkles out of there. I don't know if I'm going to get them all out of there or not, but that's okay. And I will end up putting at least a solid color of paint in the background because now it definitely has some matte medium. So I just have an inkjet printer. I don't have a fancy printer, and so the ink is not permanent. It might be if I let it dry for 24 hours, we might get a little more solid ink, but what I noticed is the matte medium will activate the ink on that image, and so I just have to be mindful of that if I'm trying to keep a clean background. And we're just going to go with it and see what we can do. So I'm just going to come in and start loading up my palette here with a little bit of paint, and I'm going to start diving in and see what I can do. I really like the texture and style of this, and I've been having a lot of fun using artificial intelligence, AI, specifically Midjourney is what my husband and I have been playing with lately, to design paintings that are in my head. A little something something in there to design paintings that are in my head, get them out of my head. And it's helped with composition. Now the end painting, interestingly, rarely ends up looking exactly like the the image that I create in Mid-Journey. And but it gives me a place to start, right? It gives me a place to start. So I figured I'd give that a try here. I'm thinking I'm going to want a little bit of this dark blue. So I'm getting all my warm colors. Try a little bit of that blue, and I'm definitely going to want some white. I've recently I tried some of the Liquitex Basics acrylic fluid. So this is like a golden fluid, and it's pretty nice. I was pretty happy with the opacity and the flow of this one. It's a much thinner consistency than the other paints that I'm using here. So it's actually really good for mixing things in and creating layers. And I'm going to work with a pretty small paintbrush to start. And I'm just going to start layering in some color with, this is kind of, it's like kind of like paint by numbers, maybe a little bit. And I just want to see what can happen. This may be an epic fail, and it may end up being really fabulous. Who knows? But I love this kind of bold style here. And this is an effort or an exercise in thinking about light and shadows, in thinking, and that paint is wet, so it's going to be a little glary there. I apologize. Let's see. There we go. That's a little bit better. Because one of the things when we're learning to paint portraits of people is to think about light and shadow. Where does the light fall on the planes of the face? And you can see the light on this one is highlighted from way up here at the top. So if you're working on something similar at home, what I might encourage you to do is to look for an image of Maya Angelou that's high contrast, right? That's really high contrast. And I want to see if maybe we can mix a little brown over here. So normally red and blue make purple, but if I also add a little yellow, little orange, just kind of all of the colors on my palette, I'm either going to get a nice gray or I'm going to get a nice sort of browny color. And again, I'm just bringing in some of those shadows, just playing with paint. My tendency when doing a bolder painting like this is I want to kind of mush everything together like I normally do, soften out all of those edges. And so my effort here is maybe to look at how can I use some bolder strokes to create this portrait of Angelou here. I can't remember if I shared on here before, but one of the things that I learned from a friend of mine that went to art school was she always tells me that in class they were never allowed to, that's a little greener than I want it to be, but we'll brown that up a little bit later. They were never allowed to use black in the classroom right out of the tube, that they always had to blend their colors to create their blacks. And so I've really been playing with that by using, my palette that I'm creating to blend those darks and those lights. So it's really hard to see because it's so dark, but now it's looking kind of green and blue, maybe getting a little away from some of those colors, and I'm okay with it right now. It can change and grow. Hi, Carol. Good morning. And I don't want my painting to end up looking exactly like this artificial intelligence image that was created. So I'm going to be wanting to come in and add quite a bit of texture. You can see I'm moving my brush around in circles because I'm wanting to get some of the texture of her hair here. And I'm going to work dark to light, which is typical with acrylics, so the opposite of what we do when we work with watercolor. And interesting, there are some, darker purples and reds in here. I'm curious if I'm going to like this style when it's done in paint as opposed to graphically like it is in the image. There's a couple of artists that I really admire who have this sort of very bold painting style, and it's been something I've been working on in my own canvases, is not being overly blendy with things, but to let the paint kind of flow on the page in a different way. And it's fun and it's challenging. There was something she said. So one of her other quotes was, "You can only grow if you're willing to feel awkward and uncomfortable when you try something new. You can only grow if you're willing to feel awkward and uncomfortable when trying something new." And I think that is such an exploration of the creative practice. For sure. She also says courage is the most important of all the virtues because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently. And I think that's how I like to approach my own creative practice, is through that lens of what can I try that's different, that feels challenging. Painting people definitely always feels challenging. Oops, got the end of that in that white, not what we wanted. Anybody else a Maya Angelou fan? Bye, Tori. Great to see you. And so, again, if there is an artist or a style that you admire, I encourage you to just paint over something they've created. Now, this was created by robots, not by a person, but I'm just kind of paying attention again to this is a stretch for my own painting style and noticing, what can I learn from doing this. Imagining where that edge of her blouse might come down, and I'll come back and finish over the neck over there. Again, bold strokes, letting the paint mix right on the page. I'm not cleaning my brush in between. Barbara, remind me where in Florida you are. My husband and I are going to be in Miami in April, and we're going to Key West for the first time ever. And I'm always excited to explore new places. And then we're going to a storytelling workshop in Miami that we're really looking forward to. Hi, Jen. Good afternoon. Where in the world are you? It's 7:20 a.m. my time, so you must be in another part of the world. Same, Carol. I'm not someone who remembers quotes, but there's a few of hers that always in Scotland. Welcome, welcome, Jen. A few of hers that I always do remember. One of her most popular ones with artists is that you can't use up creativity, that the more you use, the more you have. Can't use up creativity, the more you use, the more you have. Which is why, it goes right along with practice makes perfect. And being creative in one area of life always leads to East Coast north of Miami. Yeah. Awesome. 2 hours north of Miami. We're going to be there April 20th to 29th. So we'll be in Key West for the first 5 days of that and then back in Miami. And I haven't been able to find anyone that has been to Key West and has any sort of fun ideas for what to do, see, and like must sees in Key West. So if you have any insider tips, I am open. So I'm really loving the way this is turning out. It's kind of fascinating to see. Yes, I agree. She was such a kind and genuine soul, is the energy, right? And then her voice, I could listen to her speaking, and she was known for her beautiful, resonant voice. And you can go on YouTube and find quite a few videos of her reading her work or speaking. So I'm not paying like super close attention to where all those marks were. And if anybody wants a copy of this particular AI image that I created, most of you have my email. You could just shoot me an email and I would happily share it with you if you want to practice this, or if you've been having fun playing with artificial intelligence, then by all means try creating your own portrait and pick a style, right, that you're interested in. Now I'm wishing I had kept a separate copy of the portrait so I can see where else I want to add color and detail to this. And get some nice bright yellow here. So nothing on here is quite white, right? Then when we look at that light shining, there's brights here, but not pure white. It's all tinged with color. So oftentimes we think about the highlights or light being pure white, and rarely is that true. They always have that little aspect of color to them. Yeah, so Barbara, if you have any tips on Key West, I'd love to chat with you. It is our 28th wedding anniversary. So we're coupling some work with some play. All right, I'm really loving how this is turning out. I've kind of lost where that underpainting is. I can see a little bit of paper here on her neck to come back and add a little more color. So I'm looking for any of those places that I might have missed. And I put a variety of paints down here. I didn't even end up using them all. And still, it's a little too, thank you, Yvonne, a little more green in some places than I want. So some place where I've got some, thank you guys. April 27th is our anniversary. Yvonne, congratulations. Congratulations to you too. It's a little more green, not as brown as I'd like. So some of these places where I've got some of that green, I'm going to see if I can brown it up a little bit. Much better, much more brown. It may be a little brighter than I want, but the green didn't feel quite right. Thank you, Barbara. And what I love about working with acrylics is that opportunity to just keep building up and adding those layers until we get it how we want it. And so at this point, the printed image has completely disappeared. And I've got to make some decisions about what do I want to do with the background. I'm almost thinking a pale yellow background, or maybe the blue that the royal we, me, end up putting over here on our butterfly. And deciding how I want to clean up this edge a little bit over here. I'm remembering now that I'm back to this after a couple of weeks away that I did not love the acrylic paint on this nice soft watercolor paper. It was great for watercolors, but not as much for the acrylics, and so it definitely needed a little extra water mixed in. All right, so I think that last thing is going to be to add in our butterfly. Oh, you are the best, Barbara. Thank you. All right, so there is our portrait. And there's a lot of variation in color in the neck that it's hard to see, but I will post a picture over on Instagram. But I love how the face came out, and simply painting over the image this way gives me courage to maybe take the other image of her or another portrait and approach it in the same style with these very bold, dramatic colors and bold, dramatic marks. So I'm going to come in and add some color to our butterfly. And I know quite a few of you have been working on 100-day projects. How's it going for other people on your 100-day projects? Are you keeping up? Are you getting bored? Are you feeling behind, even though, we all know we're never behind? Let's see. I'm looking for a palette knife, but I don't seem to. Must have all gotten moved to the other side. This is the problem with cleaning things up. Then, I can't find anything. Aha, there's one. See, Barbara, I think you were doing 100 days of portraits, right? This is such a beautiful blue when you add white to it. It's such a deep, dark blue, but you can really get some nice, gorgeous colors of that blue. And I'm going to do the same thing with that butterfly that I did with the face. Definitely behind. Yeah, well, remember it's 100 days of something. No one said it had to be 100 consecutive days, right? So I think it's important to notice if you're still interested in the project, or, have you lost interest and it's really time to just give yourself permission to move on. I have started a variety over the years of 100-day projects and then stepped away from them when I've gotten bored. Oh, I don't know if I could do 100 days of hands, Yvonne. You'll definitely be better at hands by the time you draw 100 of them for sure. That's impressive. I know you see a lot of hands every day in your work as well, don't you? All right, having some fun with the butterfly. 100 dogs. You got inundated with people sending you dog photos. Yep, that's awesome. I love it. Yeah, yes. That's one of the things I have to do before I go to Miami. One of the friends who's leading the workshop I'm going to has a adorable new puppy, and I want to bring him a gift of art of his puppy. All right, so that butterfly is starting to come to life. I'm not sure what the 12 days of Vlogmas is, but if you got through it, awesome, and count it as success. All right, so I'm going to come in and use the other end of my paintbrush and just start to bring a little bit of detail into our butterfly. This is a butterfly of my imagination. The end of your paintbrush is great for making dots on a piece. And I'm going to see if I can find, here's a nice little tiny brush. Let's get some of these other colors in here as well. So I want the butterfly to reflect some of the colors in the rest of our portrait so it feels integrated. Some are trace, some are stylized. I've even put in quotes about hands. Beautiful. I would say all of that counts. I would even say photographs, right, could count. Like for me, the projects definitely have to have enough variety to keep me entertained. And one of the things that derailed me personally was some, live programs that I was working on, including our Carousel of Creativity, which started last night, and I had a live Nancy Drew course as well in the middle. But the other thing was that we are creating a quiz, and the quiz is going to be part of the book. And so I've been doing a lot of, sort of writing and typing, and I haven't gotten back to the illustration piece. So I'm looking forward to getting back on track because I really want to get that book done, and it's not going to write or draw itself. So I'm noticing that I need a little more accountability and a little more structure in my project to keep me going. So by using my YouTube lives as that structure, I'm hoping to make some progress on the project. All right, that butterfly definitely needs some white on it. And I'm loving how she looks. I'm even loving the white background, which means that I might just come in with some gesso to get it nice and a bright, clean white. And that's matte medium. I want white paint. Uh, and then get the quote about the butterflies written around the edges of the page. But this was a fun challenge for me. And kind of again that abstract stylized portrait of her. All right. Every time the heater comes on down here, I think it kicks up dust and it makes me cough. All right, this is a cheap brush. You can see the end there is frayed. I'm not sure that's gonna get me the kind of lines that I want here. But we'll see what we can do. I want to start to bring a little bit of that shape back to our butterfly. Could have also done this with gel pen or posca. Trying not to drag my hand through the wet paint over here and smear all that work. All right, loving the butterfly coming together nicely there. Oh, I love that, Carol, about how you regained the fun element instead of letting the pressure of others' expectations stop you from keeping going. Again, just taking that very end tip of my little paintbrush here, smaller brush this time, to give some outline and dimension to our butterfly. And I'm feeling like I still want even more. Like, I know one of the things that I struggle with is getting those really bright, bright highlights. I always end up blending them in because they always look too bright until I take a step back, and they're always just right. But coming in with just a little more of that white, letting that light shine in a little bit more. And I am going to use a gel pen here to get some antennas on our butterfly. And I'm thinking still maybe just a little more variation down here in the neck. It's hard to tell now where there's paint and where there's, I don't think there's any paper in there anymore. All right, I'm loving the way she's looking. I usually go the other way, Carol. I tend to work much more in acrylic. All my large paintings are in acrylic, and watercolor really becomes my, thing that I love to play with or just relax with. even by talking about committing to my book project this morning, it feels good and it makes me realize, like Carol did, how can I make this fun again? How can I immerse myself again in the process and feel reinvigorated about the process and the journey? And one of the reasons that I've loved featuring these women this month is because every single one of them that we've talked about, all of the ones that were added to the workbook that we created, showed that spirit of tenacity and just deep commitment to their work, right? Like I think about Georgia O'Keeffe or Maya Angelou, who worked on their craft till the very, very end of their life. So I'm just going to come in here with a little bit of white. That white may be too transparent, but I just want to, one, have some texture on the page to match the portrait, and two, cover up some of the smudgy bits from that matte medium. And this, again, is a very fluid acrylic, so it's going to not have a ton of texture. And I want to be able to write over it, so I don't want it to be too textury. But even just using white, we can create a painterly background. And I'm wondering, yeah, a little bit of color in there. Just the tiniest little bit of that yellow. It's going to kind of help, I think, pull all this together. And this watercolor paper is thirsty, man. It just soaks up the paint. It's kind of fascinating. Definitely gives it, again, that more, yeah, it needed that little pop of yellow, kind of that, again, like I said, that painterly feeling. And not so much yellow that it competes with the highlights on her face. And then that yellow can be a little deeper down here in the shadows underneath. Maybe a little more yellow down here. Just what it needed to create kind of that beautiful just pop of color. And this again is an example of where I took that image that I created using AI and then completely made it my own. So I was oops, that was wrong color. Inspired by, not completely leaning on. All right, baby wipe. Baby wipes are magic in the studio. And I've tried all brands of baby wipes, but I always go back to Pampers because they stay wet. They tend to have they don't dry out. They're a little more expensive, but I don't go through as many of them. So we're just going to push all that right back to the paper, and then we'll come in again with our white and yellow. Stuck my brush right in that wrong spot. A little more paint on there than I wanted, so I'm just going to use a scraper to push some of that paint back again. Thanks, Cindy. It makes me want to do a whole bunch more in this style and create, a whole series of these. Now I'm not wanting to put the words on here. Let me zoom back out so we can see her full self. I'm not wanting to put the words on here because I really like the energy and the magic of where it is right now. And I probably should stop right here and not keep messing with it. So I will end up, as I have done with the other ones, putting the quotes over here on the other page in the book so that I have them. Just get a little bit of a highlight under there. So when I work with acrylics, I use baby wipes a lot for pushing paint back, for blending paint. It is a really inspired tool that I, of course, learned from my dear friend Andrea Chebalou from a Work of Heart studio. So I've gone over with the yellow, so the final step is going to be here just to clean up the edges of her hair so it looks like she's on top and not that the paint is sort of overtaking her. And I feel like I've lost just a touch of that roundness, so I want to bring that roundness back. So we're going to mix up some of that brown again. And it won't be exactly the same, but hopefully it will be close enough. That was the goal. That's what I particularly love. So when you work with Mid-Journey, when you put in a prompt, it always gives you a collection of images to choose from, 4 of them. But this one, there was something about the look on her face and how she was receiving that light, her sun raised, or her face raised to the sun. All right, that's a little darker than I want, so I'm going to have to come back with a little yellow and I think brighten this little bit up too. Because the light is shining on the front of her hair there, but right now that's too wet to do anything with. All right, so I'm going to call this one complete. I really love the way that it came out. I might, when it's completely dry, I think come in with a posca and clean up the edges of the butterfly. It's going to drop of water on there. If you get drops of water on your acrylic, the drop will stay there. So you want to make sure you soak those up. Yeah, so a little cleanup I think on the butterfly, but generally I really love this portrait of her. Feel like it was a great exercise in this bold painting style and taking and altering an image that was created. All right, I'm really happy with that one. I hope you enjoyed watching this process and just a little mindful time to really honor and celebrate the beautiful soul that was Maya Angelou. And I loved this really funny quote from her. I'll leave you with this quote today. I've learned that you can tell a lot about a person by the way she handles three things: a rainy day, lost luggage, and tangled Christmas lights. I've learned that you can tell a lot by a person by how she handles these three things: a rainy day, lost luggage, and tangled Christmas lights. And I thought that shows her charm. She was quite funny and such a delightful, humorous character. So there was so much depth, seriousness, a lot of, trials and tribulations in her life. And yet she came through it with such grace and humor. And she really was that butterfly who went through so many changes to just become such a shining light, and amazing writer and fierce activist for so many others. So that is our final portrait in our series of famous women artists and creatives. I'll be back on Thursday, and I'm going to be diving deep for the next month into my book all about the heroine's journey, and how we can really tap in and connect to our own creative essence. So I will see you guys live on Thursday morning. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you guys all soon. Bye, everybody.